Hello and welcome. Today I'm going to talk about how British government prepared to recruit West Indian workers in a bid to overcome labour shortages after World War II. Some extraordinary claims have been made today by those who never learnt our history to a decent level. In doing so, instead of debunking history, they are actually undoing the history. The trouble with this is you start telling lies about our history. Where do you stop? If you tell a lie big enough and keep repeating it, people will eventually come to believe it. Here is short address to West Indian workers on HMT Windrush by Ivor Cummings, a civil servant from Colonial Office. First of all, let me welcome you to GR Britain and express the hope that you will all achieve the objects which have brought you here. As many of you know, I am from the Colonial Office, and although you have come over here as private individuals, we want to do what we can in consultation with other departments to assist and guide you through the next 2 or 3 weeks. I know that many of you have been in this country before, but to those of you who are new to England, and will be particularly in need of guidance, I want to say that I hope you especially will take very careful heed of the advice which is given to you. Tomorrow morning representatives of the Ministry of Labour and National Service will board this ship in order to give what assistance they can. Now I come to the advice and help which I think we as officials can give you. We have asked that you should be separated into 3 categories. Those of you who wish to volunteer for service in the Army and Air Force. Service departments have undertaken to consider you for enlistment at an early date, and in order to facilitate this, and as I believe most of you who are volunteers have already been in the services, the Colonial Office has arranged for you to be accommodated temporarily at the Colonial Servicemen's Club, 77 Wimpole Street. You will be required to stand by at the club pending the carrying out of formalities by the War Office and Air Ministry. You will of course, be responsible for your own board and lodging, the cost of which will be 1.1.0 per week for bed and breakfast. I know that many of you have friends and relatives to who you wish to go in various parts of the country, and that you have good prospects of employment. In order to facilitate your departure, the Ministry of Labour proposes to give free travel warrants from Tilbury to your places of destination to those of you who may not be able to pay for long-distance journeys. I hope I shall hear that many of you have in actual fact got somewhere to go. I enclose a full transcript of the letter welcoming Windrush passengers in a thumbnail to this video. I will now include a transcript from Ministry of Labour, dated 6th of April 1948, which outlines the dire situation Britain was facing in regards to shortage of labour. The demands for Great Britain for 1948 include 20,000 men for agriculture to replace German prisoners of war and some 30,000 men for the mines. In addition, the textile industry needs 20,000 women, and hospitals and other institutions are still in need of large numbers of domestics. It is still necessary to confine recruitment to single men and women in view of accommodation and placing difficulties in England for married couples. This was a bid to recruit white-skinned settlers from Europe that would help rebuild Britain, called Westward Ho scheme. However, certain problems occurred, which the document further outlines as follows. The volume of applications is not nearly as high as was anticipated. A considerable number of those employees are ex-officers who are not prepared to undertake manual work, while others are satisfied with their present conditions of employment, which include short hours, heavy rations and uniform. It later says, smaller numbers of other nationalities continue to volunteer, but interviewing is very much slower in view of the number of borderline or previously rejected cases, or queries regarding the entrainment of dependents. Another government document extract comes from a file dealing with efforts to find work for the first Commonwealth immigrants. The extract gives details of a pilot scheme for the recruitment of Barbadian women fro. Year 1947 to 1948, there is no doubt of the need of women workers in hospitals, laundries etc. in Britain, but it is very difficult to get employers to give any guarantee that they will employ a given number of workers, particularly coloured workers, and at a distance of 3,000 miles. It would be highly desirable that there should be some preliminary selection of suitable women workers in Barbados before sending them to this country. Recruitment of women workers from Barbados under an organized recruitment scheme would almost certainly lead to demands from other West Indian colonies, and it would therefore be necessary to recruit on a West Indian basis, not a Barbadian basis. Barbadian women workers employed under any official scheme in this country would have to be paid at the same rates as British women workers, and this might give rise to difficulties, since employers would be doubtful whether the output of Barbadian women would be as good. An official recruitment scheme might be possible, but before this could be decided, more careful investigation would be necessary by sounding more closely what guarantees of employment could be given in hospitals, laundries etc. Since 1948 various NHS schemes to recruit Caribbean women to the UK as nurses have been run over the next few decades. Some West Indian nurses came and had a meeting with a visiting dignitary at a British hospital, 1962, which there are records of. The majority of Caribbean nurses came from Barbados, Jamaica and Trinidad and Tobago, however there were also recruits from St. Lucia, St. Vincent and British Guiana. Also Enoch Powell, health minister between 196 and 1962, welcomed immigrant nurses and doctors, under the condition that they were to be temporary workers training in the UK and would then return to their native countries. He also spoke about major recruitment surge since 1948. Staff were recruited in the Caribbean, India and Pakistan. Among the things Enoch Powell said was, "They provide a useful and substantial reinforcement of the staffing of our hospitals and who are an advertisement to the world of British medicine and British hospitals." By the year 1977, 66% of recruited student nurses and midwives accounted from the Caribbean. I will now move on to London transport. In the years following the Second World War, London experienced severe labour shortages. In 1948 a ship named the Empire Windrush sailed from Jamaica to Britain, bringing with it nearly 1,000 West Indians seeking employment in the UK. Over the next 2 decades this wild-scale migration, known as the Windrush generation, changed Britain forever. In 1955 London Transport had 3,500 vacancies for various operational roles on the underground and bus systems. To fill these, management looked toward recruitment from Commonwealth countries including Malta, Ireland and Barbados. The picture above, dating from 1956, shows Charlie Gomm, a recruitment officer for London Transport, meeting with local job applicants in Barbados in an attempt to fill the many vacancies. As a result of this trip, 140 Barbadians were offered jobs in London, 70 taking positions as bus conductors and 70 taking positions as stationmen for the Underground. They were the first of many employees to come over from the Caribbean to join the Underground.